everybody. Welcome this morning. It is morning. It's early morning. We just had our time change. I'm in Washington State, and I have someone that I'd love you to hear from today. We heard from before, but so much has happened in his life since we talked to him before. So if you could just introduce yourself, where you're from, and then kind of where we were last time, where you were in your journey through Augusta, and then we'll go from there.
Sounds great. Well, thanks for getting up so early and doing this on the weekend. I appreciate it. My weeks have been hectic recently. So my name is Connor Hutchinson from Charlotte, North Carolina. I currently own 5 locations. The last time we talked, I was a general manager of one of my Gandy's locations. I had started the Huntersville location, and I think shortly after we had talked, I had moved to another one of the locations that was struggling to kind of get that up and going and kind of help boost that a little bit. And since then, Mike has sold me his locations.
Yeah. So help the listener to understand how in the world somebody comes from being a GM to that, like your mentality, just everything about how you would even begin that journey.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I got really lucky. I never expected something like this to happen. And so I think Mike had a bit of faith in me when there was a transition that needed to be made. It was essentially like put me in a regional manager position or sell me the locations. Mike had a lot on his plate at the time with Copilot and going into spring, like it was like February, I believe, late January. And so like we were ramping up for spring rush. He had a lot to think about with Copilot and just the franchise in general, and making sure that this year was a success for the franchisees. So I never saw it coming. But one of the things I think I did right was I worked like I had ownership in it. Like I launched Huntersville like it would have been my own location. I'd always expressed my goals of wanting to be an owner, originally joining Augusta for the 3F program, and wanting to have multiple locations. And so Mike gave me the opportunity to kind of expedite that a little bit.
Yeah. So in all of our businesses, all of the owners know, and it's one of the biggest frustrations is that we lose GMs, we lose employees, valuable people. And then for us, we have even someone that looks over all those locations, and you never expect to lose them, but it happens on every level. So the person looking over them left, and then we had all these GMs, like who's in charge of everybody, and Mike is the owner. And what does he do? Typically, he would have to jump in to all these locations. Did he have 5 at that time, or was it 4?
There was 5. Yep.
Yeah. And was the one who spent the 30 days on building from nothing. So it was just getting started. So what happened is so very rare. What do you think it was in your communication with Mike during that time? The reports from the regional manager, what do you think about you stood out that a conversation like that would ever happen? It would be extremely rare. This is like 1 in a million, really.
Yeah. I mean, I'd kind of already with the regional manager, like I was trying to learn a lot of what he was doing because I wanted to own multiple locations in the future. And so like I'd already kind of started to step into that a little bit. There was talks of me either potentially becoming a regional manager in the future or, when I do branch off, like I want to own multiple locations. And so I wanted to see what that's like for an owner or a regional manager. Right. If Mike was not just if he was not the franchisor, but rather maybe just like a franchisee that owned multiple locations like this probably wouldn't have came to be. And so it was just purely, I'm sure, how much he had, on his plate that, and with the locations being so far away from you guys, right, in Washington, if they were closer, I'm sure it wouldn't have ended up like this.
Your character, had you ever had as a GM of his locations, it's usually not, those usually aren't the people that communicate with him directly. but were you ever able to have phone calls as a GM, or would have just been reports of character coming from somebody else?
Yeah, probably mostly reports. Like I took advantage of opportunities to talk to him when I could. The first time, so like I flew myself out to go to Landscape Summit before we actually even started. That was like, I think, January of 23. And so that was kind of when he was starting a bunch of the locations here in North Carolina. So I was the only GM that went out there with the regional manager, and or maybe there was one more GM, but either way, I had gone, started to meet him then at training, kind of just took opportunities to speak to him quickly about my goals and how much I enjoyed Augusta from the outside, and then as I kind of hopefully proved myself a little bit through Huntersville. I think those reports helped me out a lot, kind of just seeing the performance, especially in comparison to some of the other locations, how they were performing.
Yeah, I know that he mentioned to me that he saw a lot of himself in you, in the drive and the ability to actually do this, that he believed in you. Always, for all of us, we never feel ready to step into other roles. So he worked out something with you, just like, people had with him. It's like paying it forward and knowing that none of us get anywhere without somebody else giving us a leg up. So how did it come to be that you actually bought all the locations? For him, it would have been like totally take it away and take it over, and to even sell, knowing that could be taken care of. There would be a report of South Park, which he had gone the 30 days and started. So what was that like the day of the signing and the sense of responsibility that came on you? Do you think that you really absorbed the impact?
Well, it was super, at the time I was just pretty excited. I was like, I'm always like ready to like keep doing something new, do something big, and I'm not sure if I realized like the day of that, just like how enormous everything was, but like we handled things like super quickly, and again, like it's all just so lucky because like Mike's whether the locations here in North Carolina are owned by Mike or not, like he has incentive for them to stay in business, right? And so like he wanted to make sure that he was setting me up in the best deal. Like definitely, it's definitely like the most amount of money that I've ever committed to for how much to owe somebody. Like it's way more than a lot of houses, but like he wouldn't have made that deal if he thought that there was a risk for these locations, because we had team members here. He didn't want to put anybody's job at risk, and really like it's the best for the brand as well, to make sure that they continue on. And so just the fact that like we could sign, we could do it so quickly because I had worked for him for a year and proven myself, and we had aligned incentives in just keeping the locations open, keeping everybody's job. I think that's what like helped it just go so fast. It really, I think it took like 42 or 78 hours to like, which is crazy for something of that size, but it's because there was so much trust there previously, So
yeah, and the fact that you had only worked there a year is mind-boggling, and pretty much nobody else on the planet that is an entrepreneur or business owner would take that kind of risk generally. So can you tell us each location kind of where they were in growth? Did you have a GM? What was in place when you took over?
Yeah, so I think we were, if I'm trying to remember right, I think we were down one GM, and then I was a GM of a location. So me stepping up into either role, regional manager or owner, I think was going to put us down 2. So I had to immediately start hiring for that. Mooresville's kind of stayed the same for the last couple of years. I think it's third year just staying the same, right around that 500,000 mark, just optimizing for profit. And with what Mike's been talking about recently, we'll grow that up to 800 probably next year, and just continue to optimize and really make that print some money. Huntersville, I think finished off last year just under 300,000, like 250 or so. I left there in maybe it was August. I was kind of running 2 locations for a little bit, and then we decided that like I can't give full focus to growing one location. Huntersville's good enough, at the position it is. So we handed it off to a GM. I went out to Concord. Concord and Cornelius are 2 of our smaller locations. They last year probably did like 100, 150, like 120, 150. Those 2 kind of struggled to get off the ground last year. It was just a lot of learning for all of us on how to launch multiple locations at the same time in the same market. You have some troubles with like GMs and stuff like that, and if you miss the spring, you kind of really put yourself in a bad spot. This year they'll both do close to 300, I think. They're both over the 200 mark now. We'll see what happens with like Christmas lights and stuff. So still not quite as big as I wanted them to be, just because like I again learned a lot in the position I was in. I was this year in the same position the regional manager was in last year, where like, how do you balance your time of like, trying to grow multiple locations, working through finding, good leaders to run the locations and different things like that. We definitely had some struggles this year with, getting good GMs in place. Luckily, we have a rock star team now. So like next spring will be amazing.
Yeah. So we also have the executive model, which you have been a great guinea pig. Almost 6 locations, and 6 locations is where we typically start, and they would be starting from nothing, maybe with just a couple GMs. So that being said, they would have a space of time. So if they have an executive model, they can start one, and they have a year to start another. And so even if that happens for somebody else, your situation will always be unique because you immediately had 5, and you immediately were the regional manager plus the location. So did you immediately go into profit mode for the companies you currently have? Were you in growth mode and then switch to those to manage all the other ones?
Yeah, so we're like profit mode hardcore right now, because I guess so the one that I didn't speak about, so talked about Mooresville, it's kind of stayed the same. That one's really kind of been our saving grace, because that one has been profitable and we're just keeping it there. Huntersville as well is pretty profitable because of the size I was able to get it to last year. We just a small amount of growth, like no real like online ads or anything like that, just door hangers occasionally. That kind of funded the other 2 locations. And then the last location that I didn't talk about was South Park. So that was kind of mismanaged on my end, actually. And the reason I think you said like 4 or 5 earlier was when Mike handed it to me, there was 5 locations. I closed South Park for a little while. I had selected the wrong person to run the location. Well, I had a really great guy there first, I should say. He got an opportunity to go play professional basketball, basically.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And like, I always tell everybody, I want you to be here. I want you to be here long term. I would be super happy if you're here for, the rest of your career. But I also want you to do something that you're extremely passionate about, right? Because like, this is something that I enjoy, business in general. And so I'm never going to hold somebody back if they get a better opportunity, right? That was like a once in a lifetime opportunity for that guy. So that kind of happened in the spring. That happened in March, like a month after the handoff. He left. I put somebody else in place. It was the wrong move, and I kind of knew that ahead of time. But I was in a tight situation, and I'd never really gone through that. And then so just with how like we didn't have a ton of funds going into the spring, and so I decided to just put that location on pause. Essentially, it would just suck a small amount of money through like franchise fees and just a couple other things that we have to pay for. And I figured that would be less loss than growing it, because Mike had grown it, but when he started it, it was in the summer. And so I think there was maybe when he left like 25, 30 mowing customers, something like that. Some of them kind of fell off throughout the year. You have people move. We had a few people not sign back up. And so we were going into the spring with like 20 mowing clients. That location South Park is also 45 minutes away from all our other locations. So it's on the south side of Charlotte, where we have the 4 northern ones are all connected. So that was a learning experience for me, but we've actually relaunched it now, and it is I think it is our biggest location. So I forget what the original question was that got me there, but
no, that's good. For the listener, how big are each of these locations? I mean, like space wise.
Size?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you look at a map of Charlotte, the 4 northern locations cover, there's a highway 485. We basically take up like everything like north of that, more or less. All the locations are, I don't know what they actually are, maybe 5-7 miles at most. They're pretty small. So that would be one thing that I would advise somebody maybe in the future with starting an executive model, is like, there's a lot of benefits of having locations right next to each other. But starting 6 in 2 years, I would say maybe start like 3 that are kind of spread out, make their service areas a little bigger, and then you crack them. That will kind of allow you to like just capture like everybody in areas. I know there's a lot of like benefit in boiling the pond. But when you get like one like South Park that's kind of far away, it's a little bit harder to manage for a regional manager, just because like you can have everybody meet up north. That's a lot easier. The one location is a little bit farther away. So they're all not bigger than like 5-7 miles in radius.
Were you considered the regional manager then over all of these? And were you trying to run a location as the GM at the same time?
We pretty quickly put somebody in position. So luckily also, like with working in Huntersville and then moving out to Concord and everything, like I was pretty active in our team. And so I knew almost everybody that was on the team at the time when I got to take it over. We already actually had the regional manager had been talking to somebody about kind of next in line for a GM position. So we got one in immediately. And then we got the other one in to replace me. So those were just internal hires.
So we have 5 locations that you're starting with. We have definitely, how many GMs did you say were in there? The one guy ended up going to play basketball, but how many GMs did you have? You closed South Parks. So did you actually have legit guys helping you with the others?
Yeah. So like after April, I guess was like, or in April maybe, was like, it was like a month and a half. We tried to get South Park to go. I was like, it's going to take too much money to run. So then we just went down to 4 GMs. We had GM problems throughout the summer, and I actually did have to hop in and play GM. There was a point where I was running like 2 locations. There was even a point, maybe like June of this year, where I had 2 GMs for 4 locations, and they were each running 2, and I was kind of just over them. We tried a whole lot of different things. The best thing is like just having one person run one location, and that's where we're at now, with a regional manager that's over the 4 northern locations while I'm running South Park. So I played regional manager position. I also hopped in and covered for GMs, like when we lost GMs. However, like the best model is just having a GM that can own that location, which is what we have now. So I would be our 5th GM now. We have 4 on the northern locations, and then Thomas, one of the GMs from Mooresville, like one of the guys that's been with me since the beginning. He's been through it all with me. He's a regional manager, and he's crushing it.
That's fantastic. So you have the 5 locations in place. They're all running except the one. And so your position in there can be very lonely. For Augusta Nation, it would have been the first time it happened. And so how did you get support from Augusta Nation? Did you back off? Like, were you so overwhelmed I can't even listen to masterminds? Or did you dig in and realize you were going to need more of that support?
Yeah, for Augusta Nation, I never miss masterminds ever. Like the whole first year in Augusta, I was doing the summaries of the masterminds. I got pretty busy and I didn't want to be typing because I listened in the car and stuff like that. So I stopped doing those, but never miss the masterminds. No matter what you're going through, like because one of the things that I hear a lot, and I know Mike says this. I was recently talking to him about this. Was people need to be reminded more than they need to be taught. I know everything. I was an Augusta corporate employee, right? So like I was trained by the book, and I found myself in that situation here about a month ago, where I just needed to. I need to be reminded of like what we need to do. I don't need to reinvent the wheel here. There were times, and I definitely don't recommend this. There were times where I kind of just like shut down and like stop talking to people, just head down. There's probably moments where that needs to happen.
Yes.
Luckily, I have a really good group of guys that I met really, really early on while I was still a GM. For whatever reason, 4 other franchisees let me in their group chat. And we've been super close since, and they've been like super, super helpful to me. So shout out to the Dean's List. Like they really kind of keep me on a course. I've seen like all of their growth. I see, the problems that they go through. Some of them are multi-unit owners. Some of them just own really large locations. And so, how they kind of handle general managers and different things like that. Because that was the biggest thing, was like learning how to manage managers is definitely like a different skill. Sorry, say again.
It's a different ball game than normal.
Yes. Yeah. So this year my activity in the Facebook page and stuff like that, and giving back to Augusta has been far less than what I want it to be. It was not like it was last year. I try to be very active and give back everything that I learned, so that people can take that and jump ahead in their career, same ways that I've learned from other people that are ahead of me. I'll get back to that, and I'll continue sharing. I know I just made a couple posts because I've been feeling bad about that. I always want to be somebody that's giving more than I'm taking.
Yeah, but I think you're in the mode of paving the way for a lot of other people that are going to come behind you with, you're just not winging it. Like you said, you're using the systems for every place, but it's not like you have an executive model to get on the phone with and, hey, what are you going through? And you're leading the way here.
I always forget that. I've actually been talking to a bunch of people this week, and like, I forget that we own the most locations. It's a really, really cool honor. It doesn't feel real. Like I still just feel like I'm just doing the same thing I was doing last year, just trying to grow and just provide more jobs and have a better place to work.
Yeah. So we have the command center component, but we won't go into that yet. Like the average person that jumped into something like this, Copilot was still a baby, full of bugs. And so you're not only learning these multiple CRMs, but then the CRM itself was not where it needed to be. And so a typical owner would be like, they're putting bugs in, they're doing workarounds and trying to figure that out. There were so many challenging components. Later on, people with the executive model will just come in and it'll all be good to go. You're a part of the beginnings, like the rest are building something great. So you'll have so much to share later. How was coming into all these CRMs? How did you deal with them? What was your challenge with Copilot trying to do that?
I mean, Copilot had a lot of like issues in the beginning. Like, I don't want to beat them up over that. That was, I know Mike and the team are doing like their 110% best to make all that happen. Internally in Augusta, I think we got to see more than some of the public would get to see, as far as like what Mike was like going through, like physically, mentally. Like, it's just like we saw how drained he was. And so I don't want to beat them up over that. It was a lot to learn, kind of with a new system, because prior to buying, we had just been switched over in December. So we're only 2 months into a new CRM, taking this over. It has its problems. Like, in the beginning, there were some days it wasn't loading and stuff like that. It's been a lot better now. I mean, all the other stuff was like, there was no other outside of Copilot. There was no other like CRMs or softwares really that I needed to learn. to do this, to step into this position. And also a quick note, props to you guys into Command Center with, because I know we had a lot of frustrations like internally with our office, like, and then also express some, to Command Center. Thank you for always giving good feedback on that, and like, and just dealing what Command Center has to do when like your number one tool is not always operating the way you want it to. You guys did an amazing job with that. So like, retroactively, I look back and like realize just like how much of a pain that must have been, because that's like your job is, it's like using a mower that blades don't spin, right?
Yeah, and 100% that Command Center was still in its baby phases, which will be memories later that we laugh about, but cried about in the interim. So trying to manage all of them as if you were the office staff, plus the field people, plus you didn't have office staff yet. How did you manage that part?
Which part, the office or?
Yeah, like you're the office person. You could have Command Center helping with some things. That would have been like hiring an assistant who kind of knew Copilot, but was still like had the responsibility to try to build all this and support you doing these things. So you were also kind of the office administrator as well, overseeing that. But was it a benefit? Like I'm thinking of people that would try to open locations that are not part of Augusta. Was it helpful, and how much did you use Command Center as if you were them, like just somebody to answer the phone, or did you need a lot more help to get started on the admin side?
No, we didn't need any help because of the existing structure, right? So like it was already set up. We were full service with Command Center. Like all of Mike's locations, they use Command Center from top to bottom. As far as I'm aware, like that's all I did as a GM was use Command Center. One of the biggest things I learned as a GM, especially when talking with people in the office, is like they're not out mowing lawns and stuff like that, right? And vice versa, right? So like us in the field, like we might not fully understand what goes on with people's days in the office, and so just communication is clear. We did end up starting our own office, and that's still something like we try to practice is when you're relaying something to somebody, because like if you're going to relay it to the office and Command Center, right, and I need Command Center to call this client, blah blah blah, something happened at the property, whatever the example is, you have to be crystal clear, right? And like providing everything and anything that you can as far as like maybe pictures or documentation, just clear, concise answers like yes, no, and then timeliness as well is super important with Command Center, because, I'm learning this a lot now with us having our own office is like, oftentimes, like if they put something in your chat, like they need the answer fast because, they got an upset client on the phone or whatever, right? And like the faster you can resolve that, the better it is. And so like for franchisees using Command Center, you can use Command Center full service, and they'll only work as well as you do, right? Like they can only go off of so much information that you give them, how fast you respond to them, and just how well you work together there.
Yeah. So even if somebody was not using Command Center and then had to bring somebody in on the phones, they'd probably have to bring them like just straight on the phones and just bumble around. But because you had Command Center to even do part of it, what Mike really speaks to is if you get to 800,000, even if you're using Command Center, you're going to need Command Center to be an employee for a while. Is that what you saw, that 800,000? Where were you that you could start backing off from those main tasks that what Command Center was helping you with besides the phone calls? So for the listener, it would be like, where do I have to hire somebody?
Yeah. I would say
you go ahead and answer. I got to grab my charger.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I would say probably like 800,000 is a good marker. There's a reason Mike set that. It always gets a little confusing for me having 5 locations because collectively, they're over $1 million, but not one of them is. And so if you collectively have it, and especially if they're all in the same area, then, that's when I would say probably it's a good time to start using it. The one, or to start backing off of Command Center a little bit. That's one of the super nice features of Command Center, is like selecting which tasks you want. So, if you don't mind, like, I'll explain like kind of how we started to take some of the stuff back in-house.
It's
That was a
menu.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, like a la carte. And so phones are one of the highest priced things on our Command Center bill, just because like that's how a lot of clients communicate, right? But when we started to take some of the things back in house, phones were actually one of the last things we took, if I remember right. And one of the reasons that we started to take things in house as well is we probably could have continued to use Command Center, no problem. I think 800,000 is a good time, but I think you can continue to use it past then. One of the big things when you start to get over $1 million, I think, is just simply the cost, and that will be where a lot of things like the AI, Max AI, and just other ways of doing things, when as Copilot continues to mature and can like automate and like connect things a lot, the cost of Command Center will come down. So like our cost of Command Center was just so high, especially I knew we had to grow a little bit in the spring to get to a manageable point. I'm lucky enough to have an amazing wife that wanted to do some of that. And so it was like twofold. One, we could save the businesses a little bit of money. Two, we could also keep it in-house, so I didn't have to pay myself quite as much. So we could also pay her. So instead of like paying out to Command Center, we kind of got to keep a little bit of it, in-house.
So let's address. You go ahead. Go ahead and finish that thought.
I was just going to say, like, that's one key thing is like, if you have somebody that's like guaranteed locked in, that's a good time to do it. I really would wait until you're bigger, until you can maybe get, 2 office people. Cause like unless you're going to be like the first person in the office and you can truly pretty much be removed from the field. I worry about like, if I had to just go hire somebody, it's like a GM, right? Like they can leave. And like when you only have one of that position, that's really tough. Even if you're taking things a la carte, you can throw it back to Command Center, but that's a big mess. And people are going to have to clean things up and the ball's going to get dropped, right? You're going to have a week of bad service for your customers there. So luckily, like, Kayla, hopefully, fingers crossed, wasn't going anywhere, right? So like she was kind of forced to stay with me, not unlike just a team member I would have hired. So
so that was the angle I was going to bring in next. Where were you in your relationship with her? Did you have kids? When you came into this and she came up for training, was it after you bought the 5? Was it in the middle of it? Were you with her when you were a GM?
Yep. Kayla's been with me for quite some time. I think we've known each other for like 6 years now or so. We've been married just over a year. So when we were starting, when I had bought the locations, we'd been married 5 months or so, maybe.
Oh my word.
Yeah. I was like, hey, let's do this. I'm gonna sign for a whole lot of debt here.
Let's have 5 babies right after we're married.
Right, basically. And no, we don't have kids yet. Hopefully soon. That will definitely slow my growth a little bit. I don't think we'd be able to do what we've done, or I'd be able to work the way I've worked the last 2 years with kids. Big shout out to Kayla. I've probably been a little bit unfair to her with how much I work. Everyone thinks the grass is greener on the other side. There's a lot of sacrifices, and I appreciate her for. I don't make her. She works long hours to keep everything running, to keep the office going. She learned everything. She used Command Center to like train herself. I didn't do a single thing there. She trained our first office team member. She'll train our next few. And then hopefully one day I can, help her dreams come true, and she can be a stay-at-home mom, right? And she wants out of this when that time comes. So
Yeah, it's extremely overwhelming for somebody like her to come in and do everything. A big thing, though, that Mike now says every time, the most successful franchisees bring their significant other to training. So
Mhm.
you were engaged, I believe. I don't know if you were engaged yet, but she came with you.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think the training that we came to at the beginning of this year at 2024, that was right after I had bought it. I think I was out there like twice back to back, because some of the GMs actually none of the GMs had been uh, trained yet at the franchisee training. Which is it required for GMs to go? I prefer that they do.
No,
Okay,
it's not
it's just the
required.
owner.
Not at this
Yeah.
time.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I've been to training like 4 times. She came once, and I made sure that we made that happen because I was like, hey, like especially if you're going to be involved in this. Plus, I just want you to see like what we've really committed to now, because previously it was a job. I was just working here, but now it's like we're in this, and so bringing her to training was really important. I think she got to learn a lot of things. She had like the second highest score, I think, in that training group, and she beat all our GMs. So I was thoroughly impressed. She beat my first time test score too, so by a couple points. Yeah, I think she got like one more question right than me. So I was extremely happy with that.
Yeah, that's
And then
awesome.
she comes to conferences and all of that good stuff too.
Yeah, her attitude has been tremendous. Probably more supportive than most relationships. But did she listen to any of the content before? When you were a GM, you weren't even engaged, you're just dating. Where was she in that process?
Um, Yeah, well, so we got engaged when I got the job offer, because I lived in Ohio previously, right? And so I had my own small lawn care business. I was like, hey, I'm going to shut this down. I'm going to move to North Carolina. I don't feel like I should move my girlfriend across the
Mhm.
country, so we got engaged at that time. Hopefully, give her family a little, um, you know, make them feel easier about the situation, show that it is really serious.
Yes.
Uh, yeah. Sorry, I forget what the second part of that was.
Yeah, about her coming into everything, but was she already listening to content
Oh
because
yes.
you're so involved in this?
Yeah. Yeah. Uh I think she liked listening like in the background to some of the mic minutes and stuff like that. Oftentimes, like when I was a GM, we had a really small apartment, so my computer was just like right in the living room, or I would get home and just play it on my phone during dinner.
Yeah.
And so she would listen to a lot of the internal stuff. We also did some videos for Mike's channel, as we were launching them and getting them started with the regional manager. And uh, she watched all of those with me and stuff like that.
Yeah, so that's super helpful for people to hear. They kind of need a person with them. It's very difficult if their person is not involved at all or has their own thing and doesn't want to be involved.
I don't think she would watch it on her free time. I
Yeah.
would say she watches it to support me, and when I'm watching it, she'll sit down and watch it. Like it's not like she's like walking away or anything. But yeah, I don't think she's gonna watch a lot of the content just for her own enjoyment.
Yeah, that's good to know. It would definitely be something like me where I feel like I better stay up with it or I'm not going to be able to do my job.
And that's part of it now is right. Like so she's in the Facebook page, the Copilot page. It's like she checks that stuff like
Mhm.
now just so she can continue to better do her job, because she's great, absolutely phenomenal at her job,
Mhm.
and that's part of the reason is she stays up to date on things.
Yeah, and one benefit that we definitely recommend is if people at each location run their location in the systems, then if something happens with her, she's sick, something comes up, then if they're running in the system command center, like you said, it's going to be bumpy for the first week, but they should be able to take over and do all of the things in the systems as well with the 5 companies just individualized like the other ones. But some people are going to ask you like, are they all separate entities? Can I put all these employees on payroll? Or how did you split this up?
Yeah, jump back real quick a little bit. Something like amazing, super smart that I learned from Mike, and it really shows that he's like a caring guy, is one of the things we were concerned about, I mentioned this earlier, was like just making sure that everybody had a job, right? Like some of
Yes.
our OG team members that have been there, like I said, like Thomas was hired before me, right? So like him, Maddie, Mike, there's lots of people that like have been with the company for quite some time, right? We wanted to make sure that all of them, all of their jobs were protected. And so
Mhm.
one of the really cool things was like one of the terms in the contract that I signed with Mike was that I needed to have somebody second in line to me, and I needed to start training somebody to become a regional manager, essentially, whether or
Mhm.
not they did, because if anything were to happen to me, um, before the full amount was paid off to Mike, he would then just reassume them essentially, because I didn't want to burden Kayla with the debt, because if something happened to me, and or both of us, right, like
Yeah.
she wouldn't want that, her family wouldn't want that, right? My family, both of our families don't live here, and so um, he would reassume them essentially, and everybody could continue on like nothing happened, more or less. And so that was really really cool. And so that's kind of like layers of safety, is like, you're right, like if something happened to Kayla, like I would need to be able to throw things back to Command Center.
Mhm.
And so that's why we try to model things pretty much pretty similar, like try to stay inside of the systems, um, and do things the same way. Sorry, and there was that was to the first half.
Very
The
helpful. So I was asking how you
entities.
set them up. Yeah.
So they're all under one right now. It's just Augusta Lawn Care of Huntersville LLC. That's how Mike had ran them, I believe. Was like it was like Augusta Lawn Care of Mooresville. I think that's all under his main big one, right? I'm not super knowledgeable on all of that, honestly. We're at a size now where like I need to consult with people on how to do those types of things.
Right.
On if it would be better to split things up and have different entities. It does make it a little bit of a pain, right? Because like when you have like one LLC, like you can only have one QuickBooks account, so you have to put everybody in the same. Like everybody's essentially on one payroll. You can divide it up by location, but it
Mhm.
only pulls from one account, right? So we have to like you can't pull out of each location's account individually, so you have to transfer it into like a sixth holding account for payroll and different things like that. I am not super knowledgeable on all of that, to be honest, and that will probably be one of my big focuses over the winter, is like getting all of that ironed out. We've just ran under one LLC right now, so it's easier for insurance. I get better rates. The ability to provide health insurance, right?
Mhm.
Because it's just one big company.
Right. That's helpful. And it's just the same with Mike. As we grew, you have to pull other people in there to support it. It's just the name of the game. So at this point, if we jump forward a little bit, how are you handling the winter? Because normally there's no work to do. There's nothing. And so you're basically laying these people off. So how do
Mm-hmm.
you plan to handle that? For all the listeners, we are now at the beginning of November.
Yep. Um, yeah, so luckily we get to mow through the end of November here. We're in a transition zone, so we have northern and southern seasonal,
Nice.
um, plants, right? So we have warm and cool season grass. So we've already seen all the warm season clients like slowing down, stopping, pausing, canceling. Um, we'll do winter services, which is like maintaining people's properties, trimming things, mowing is needed, uh, you know, weeding the beds, refreshing the mulch, shaking off the cobwebs, right? Just like anything we can do essentially to, um, provide value to people. If people are home, like our guys will talk to them and see if there's anything they can do, right? Like move a pile of firewood or anything. Um, some trees around here will hold on to leaves until January. And so like, luckily, like we can stay kind of busy with that. February is pretty rough because it's like, well, you've done, you know, 2 months of winter services now, and it's kind of hard to get through. The one other thing that I'm learning about recently with my most recent business that I bought was level billing. I'm not sure if it's for everybody's market, but it works amazing here in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So like we're still gonna have 50K coming in December, January, February, and also there's some power in selling like higher end homes, higher end clients, because like they want winter services, like they want to make sure that you're at their property at least every other week to make sure that things look good for whenever they're entertaining people, different things like that, right? Like they just want to make, they make enough money that they don't want to deal with anything outside of the home, and so they want those things, and I think it's really kind of how you sell it. And so we're gonna try to sell more level billing next year, because you just wrap winter services right into it. It's winter services but on steroids, because you get all the mowing, you can bid leaves with it and bed maintenance, so you're increasing your customer lifetime value, and then you just roll winter services right into it. If they're going to pay through the winter, well, they want to see you. So
yeah. So somebody hopped in just to your employees to touch on that a little bit, because people are going to ask about that. You have a whole new group of employees come in with systems they've never heard about, like with P4P and all of that. So your onboarding process, is that a little different than normal businesses, because you're saying this is the structure you're coming into? And so are they buying in better, do you think, to P4P and the systems because of how you support them?
I think they buy in when they get to see things work, right? People want proof. I think all businesses should have onboarding systems. I mean, our systems are different than other businesses, but like, I think each business should have its own thing, right? And so I don't necessarily think that like our onboarding process is any different. We go through some paperwork with the guys on the first day. We talk about, P4P, non-P4P bonuses, yellow slips, the whole system, what being late means, things that are important to Augusta, extreme ownership, audible program, other benefits we offer to them. But really it's, I think a lot of guys will sign up just expecting it to just be like another landscaping job. And it's not until like they start to see it work, right, that they get some bonuses on their check, and they're like, oh, okay, like this makes sense, right? And so that's kind of the importance of like making sure you're putting them with an experienced team member or a trainer that can help them get there as fast as possible and be doing things the right way, and then once they see that, they're pretty well bought in.
Yeah, that's helpful. So if you had
most of our guys hit P4P every week. I apologize. Sorry.
Oh, fantastic. That's awesome. And like you said, it's in the proof. So new people coming on, like, how in the world could you ever make more than the average landscaper? And now they're making a livable wage.
And the leaderboards shows it too, right? Though, like, it's the proof's right there. Like you see the guy's name that's with you, right? That would be one cool thing. I wonder if you could, if the P4P team could ever add it, like all of our locations, to be able to see all of them, because that would be really cool. Sometimes I've done this like once or twice now, where I'll take a screenshot like at the end of the month, and I'm like, hey, I'll ask the guy, I'm like, hey, do you mind if I share? And I'll share it in our like company-wide chat with everybody. And I'm like, hey, look at this dude. He crushed it. Like, he was at 2750 for the entire month, right? During like a hard month, we had rain. And I'm like, it's possible. And so like being able to show, like, have even more proof, I think would be really cool.
Yeah. So people that are gonna open more than one location, that they, like you said, that you left it a little longer for Command Center to take back your phone calls. But if they were starting from scratch, would they hire somebody to be, let's say they do QuickBooks for all the accounts, just as if you had an employee working in that department? You have people just for the phones, and then throw it over to QuickBooks. And scheduling and routing, I'm assuming that, or routing the guys and dispatching, I would assume that's the GMs. But the actual scheduling of all the jobs and things, would you have a whole nother thing like we would, that would be a department for scheduling and invoicing?
Yeah, like yeah, so our office girls, they don't like that's all they do. However, so when because Kayla had to learn it all, right, as like the
Yeah.
office manager. And then when she started training Amanda, our first success agent, she um essentially did what Kayla did with Command Center, right? It was like slowly just started taking things, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so the first couple people that we have, it's like they're kind of generalists, you know.
Okay.
It's like Amanda and Kayla, like they can do most of everything together. And then in the future, yeah, people will like niche down, right? I also think it's like the same as out in the field, right? Like you might have whether you're doing simple projects or large projects, right? Like hardscaping and stuff like that. It's probably best to have like some project crews and then like some mowing crews, right? Um,
Hmm.
I'm I'm finding power in like keeping people on the same tasks because like they own up to it, right? There's no like passing the buck along. Like one of the big issues we had with yellow slips with mowing was like I think some of the guys were like, hey, like I'm not going to hit that crack week. The guys will hit it next week, right? Like I'm not going to trim that, whatever. And then it just never gets done.
Yeah.
And so I think like being like having compartments is very useful. In the beginning, I think you just have to start as like a generalist. So whether you're the business owner, you're doing everything, or you're in the office, you have to answer it all.
Yeah. And then do you recommend that she hire one person at a time so she can get them trained up under the person before?
It just depends on like how fast you're growing, you know.
Hmm.
So with what we do, we think we can handle about 100K per month per
Right.
office assistant
Okay.
or office team member. And so it kind of depends. Like next spring, we'll need another person, um, and go from there. And at that point, once you have three, maybe you can kind of start breaking things up a little bit. But even at three, I would say probably just everybody should know most things in case anybody's out sick for a whole week or something, and the other people have to work some overtime to keep up and whatnot.
Hmm.
Once you get past five people, it's like you kind of can start creating departments and stuff. It also depends on how much you're pulling back from Command Center.
Right.
Like if you're trying to take everything like we did, I think you guys still do a few things for us, but very, very like it's like the bookkeeping style stuff that I need to get help with anyways. Um, Outside of like just the talking to the clients, we handle it.
Yeah, what Kayla has done that's really smart is there's not enough like office assistants or office managers to fly people up here for a full training on that. So what she has done is she actually booked calls for each department. So how do I do
Mhm.
for P? And then Command Center charges by the minute, but it's still way cheaper than trying to fly somebody up here and train. So is that what she did? Like she had a call about P for P, maybe a second call if she didn't understand it,
Mhm.
a call about QuickBooks. Is that how she did that to take on each department?
Yeah, I think she did maybe max like three or four for each a la
Mhm.
carte. How many services are there? Is it like
28.
12 or
There's
28?
28. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm like so out of the office. It's not even funny.
It's
I have
28 departments, and then some
okay.
of those are the franchisees. Some of those are us that we need that many people to run them.
Right. Right. Yeah. So like the chances that an owner gets to like a point where like you are that you need like 28 departments and like you can label things like that, it's that's a long ways away, at least in my mind. I hope somebody proves me wrong. But like for the bulk of it, yeah, like you can just book a call with Command Center, have the pros train you, essentially is what's happening, teach you how they're doing it. That way you can stay inside of the systems, and that way if anything does happen or you decide that was a bad idea, you can transfer it back, and then things can be picked up right where it was left off.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, looking forward to next year, have you had to lay off people? Say if you have to lay off office people because you just hired them, but you got to kind of cut back on them. Then you have all the other guys. Do you think you'll lose a lot of your employees during this winter by adding all these winter tracks and all of that kind of thing?
No, I think the winter tracks will help. winter services, Christmas lights, and the level billing, I think will help us keep everybody on. That's one thing that I don't want to say like we'll never have to do, because like the business has to stay open and has to survive, but I would like to never do, if possible, is lay people off.
Yeah.
I have no clue how people grow large companies with laying people off. I know it works, and um, there's people way ahead of me, like Mike, for example, right? I know that's just kind of been the way it is in Bellingham for the last few years. Like when you have so many team members, right? It's like no matter how hard you push winter services and stuff like that, you're just not going to be able to keep 300 hours on the schedule each week or
Yes.
whatever they're doing, right? It's just like that's so hard. And so I mean, it can be done, but I think you can grow way faster if you protect people's jobs, keep them year round, and don't put them in a position to go find something else. I know there's some people that don't mind having a few months off. People don't mind going and getting other seasonal jobs. Some seasonal jobs around the holidays pay really well, right? But it doesn't. It just doesn't math to me, to grow a large company and grow it fast, because every spring, every person that you have to retrain to replace is like, it's just a lot of wasted time. A lot of resources go into that. So we're going to do everything we can to keep not only team members, but office people on all year round.
Yeah. Okay. So just a couple final questions for you is when you look to the 5 companies, are you making a blanket statement that we're just going to maintain, or are you picking some to go in growth mode and some to just maintain?
Yeah, it's all based on the location. In Augusta, you get the coaching calls, right? And so it's like, what would that coach tell you for that location? There is in the beginning, it was kind of just like a survival mentality for all the locations in general. And we kind of, things got kind of muddy, just like shifting things around to just make sure things like all clients were getting serviced, and that everything was getting done. But you kind of lose a lot of the ownership that a leader can have when you do that. A GM doesn't have true ownership anymore. And so, yes, now going forward, it's like all locations do their own things. And so if they need to grow, they can grow. If they don't want to, then they don't have to. I'm going to allow the GMs to, build up their bank, hit the distributable cash threshold. And then if they actually want to not take any, but buy another truck so that they can then get themselves out of the field next year, I'm all for that, right? They can put it in a position that they want. We're really going to try to optimize it like that 800,000, most of them. But each one is individual, right? Because Huntersville and Morrisville don't have to grow that much. They'll just get optimized to 800. Concord and Cornelius need to grow. So it's not like a blanket.
Yeah. If you were a kind of a micro manager and you had one location, you could probably micromanage. But what have you had to do like immediately to put into place to back yourself off to over manage, like almost become a regional manager yourself? You've just had to throw it at them, right? In a certain sense, and trust that they are going to fill the role of what a general manager would and report back to you, and you just give them guidance, right?
Yeah, I think it's like based on check-ins, right? And so like as a regional manager, how frequently I'm checking in with them. I talked, excuse me, as a regional manager, I talked to the GMs every single day or almost every single day. There was probably a few days that we didn't like at least shoot a text back and forth or a call. But you should, as a regional manager, you should probably be checking in with your GM every single day. And just like seeing how things are going. Also just like knowing them as a person. It's like any other team member, right? Like you want to know what's going on at home and what they're doing. But Yeah, you don't have to micromanage things. I mean, that's the point of having a manager is one of the things that I
Mhm.
learned, right? So like I don't have to be at their shop watching them what they're doing all the time because you can't. There's 5 different locations that you need to go to. So really it's a lot of seeing the numbers, and then the cadence at which you talk about things shows them the importance of things, right? So like right now it is starting to slow down a little bit. We want to double down on leaf cleanups. And so Thomas is talking with the GMs weekly, daily, like how many fall cleanup door hangers have we got out today? How many have we got out today? And he set a goal for all of them, and he's making sure that they're hitting that goal every single week.
Okay, so now to finalize your personal capacity as a human, as a mate, eventually a dad. When somebody's in this business, they do look forward to the winter because they're like, finally, I'll get a little bit of break. We could go away for a week or two. That's not going to happen for you unless you know that you have people that can handle it all. So you personally, when you try to manage that in your head, how are you doing?
My personal capacity, how am I managing that?
Yes, like in
Not.
all areas. So I can't imagine that a person could.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, not well. I mean, it's just like it's probably not healthy what I do, but I just like I set like it's like if you're out for a run, right? And like you see a stop sign at the, you know, like at the end of the block, right? You're like, okay, like I'm gonna push it really hard there, and then we're gonna back off. And like, yeah, that's kind of like what the winter's like for me. I know I need to get through December with what I'm doing right now in South Park. Um, Having bought that business going into one of the hardest seasons because every single client that I bought was level billing, so they all have leaf cleanups. Um, so like take your normal mowing and then multiply it by like 3 BH, and we have to get that done in every single week for the next 2 months.
Mhm.
I kind of just like set like, hey, like it's gonna be a sprint until then. Personal capacity is hard because you don't know where it's at until you find it,
Yeah.
until you break it, and that sucks. But I mean, you won't die. It's like you you just have to keep showing up. You
Mhm.
know,
At our age, you might not die, but
I
uh,
guess.
anybody older would probably have the good sense not to take this on.
Sure, sure. Yeah. It's also just like trying not to do everything yourself. Give other people power. Uh, Layla Hermosi talks about this, and I've realized I'm the absolute worst defender. She talks about delegation and is it abdication?
Yeah, and
Like,
just letting them take it over like an owner, just throwing at them and letting them go.
shout out to Thomas because I just threw it at him. I was like, "Hey, you're regional manager, man. Congratulations. Figure this out." And
That's how it works.
I Yeah, I have a lot of faith in people. I have a lot of trust in people, and he's given me a lot of faith and trust as well. And he's put his livelihood in my hands,
Mhm.
and I'm so super thankful for him.
Mhm.
Um, and so just giving him the reins and like letting him do things is like because like if I was trying to do what I'm doing right now in South Park and then also run these locations up north, like the 4 GMs on the north side, like they would not have the best me.
Mhm.
That it's just not possible. And so I needed to just hand that off and just and let that be. And so that helps a lot with personal capacity because I probably would have broke if I was trying to do it all still.
Mhm. And
You
probably
know,
trying not to compare yourself to others because there's no one to compare yourself to.
right? There's um what was the quote that don't compare your chapter 1 to my chapter 10. I'm
So
the
good.
I'm the worst at that. Uh, I wish I could like slow down sometimes and think about that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's hard to have time to back off and contemplate things, but what kind of content are you listening to now?
The Hermosis all the time. The Hermosis. My candies, of course. Uh,
Well, that's probably it. That's what I do now
yeah.
too. it's the only time to get a lot of content that has some depth to it for what we're doing.
Yeah, if you want to be like, if you want to learn from a high level leader, Layla Hermosi, it's that, like, I've been leaning into her stuff a lot more, like actually
Mhm.
like kind of cutting back on Alex a little bit. Like all of his stuff is great. I just don't even need half of the tactics that he
Yeah.
talks about right
Yeah.
now. It's like, that's not what we need. I need to figure out how to truly how to become like the next level leader,
Mhm.
to get to continue to get better leaders, working under me as well, right, and working with me. And so that's I've been leaning a lot into her content.
Yeah. Okay. So to wrap up, is there anything you'd want to share with anyone, any business owner, and anybody getting started with all this overwhelming task ahead?
No, just keep doing it.
Okay.
You'll get it done. I promise. Andy Frisella talks about something in 75 Hard he calls test days.
Mhm.
They're days where everything has gone wrong.
Mhm.
And for those that know 75 Hard, you have to do like 2 workouts. And like next thing you know, it's like 8:30 p.m. and you haven't done a single workout today. And that's a test day. And test days will come and you just have to pass the test.
Yeah.
Just keep going. I think I ended my talk at
The Tennessee meetup.
Louis. No, it was Louisville. With this quote was, "I can only see farther by standing on the shoulders of giants." And so, I can only thank everybody in Augusta, that I learned from last year as a GM, that I can be in this position now. Like you, Mike, Ryan, Brian, Forrest, all the guys in Dean's List, Logan, Bryce, Connor, Dustin, all of those guys. Like, they're the only reason that I can be here, is because they've done the things that we're doing. And so I can, only by standing on their shoulders can I see farther down the path.
Wow, that's a great note to end on. I cannot tell you enough how I appreciate your time when it's so busy, in the busy of this, doing all you do. Doesn't matter if it's November or not. And I really appreciate it. So I'll let you over and out now. It was so wonderful.
Right. Thanks for getting up so early and doing this. I appreciate you.
I'm honored.
See ya.